It's Absolutely Auburn, a place where we'll talk about all things Auburn, Maine, because we're in the middle of it all. The City of Auburn's communications team is dedicated to helping you connect with city government and learn everything you need to know about Auburn, our city, our people, our events, and our community. Welcome to Absolutely Auburn.
On this episode of Absolutely Auburn, we are hearing from Sue Clements-Dallaire and Alison Pepin in the city clerk's office, and we are focusing on voting and elections, all the things you need to know before you head to the polls on November 7th. Welcome back to Absolutely Auburn. I'm your host, Jen Bonig, and joining me as always in the studio is our fabulous producer, Abby Bourne.
Good morning, Jen.
Morning, Abby. Also joining us today are Sue Clements-Dallaire, Auburn City Clerk and Registrar of Voters. That stumbles me every time. And Alison Pepin, Auburn's Deputy City Clerk. So welcome, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
We have girl power in the studio today, Abby.
I think it is. It's is it the first one where we've had all women?
I feel like it is. Yeah.
Very cool. I like it.
Oh, well, no, Sherry and Chandra. Yeah.
That's right.
Well,
that's right.
The second girl power episode.
I guess I just didn't realize at that time.
Yeah.
That's okay. Anyway, we digress. So unless you work here in City Hall, I'm going to guess many people don't know what happens in the city clerk's office. I certainly didn't until I started working in state government. So Sue, can you explain what the city clerk's office does and what does a typical workday look like?
I can't say that I have a typical workday. It varies depending on what's going on at the time. There are days when I'll come in and I'll think that I have my day planned out and things come up that require immediate attention. A lot of time is spent responding to requests from the public or other departments. If it's a Thursday before a city council meeting, my focus that day is to work with various departments to pull together the information so that we can build the city council agenda packet and get that posted on our website for the public in advance of the meeting. It also depends on whether we're in the thick of an election or not. Elections keep us very busy. Although we typically have just 2 elections a year, we start preparing for them months in advance. There's a lot of paperwork that we have to pull together. We have training packets that we have to prepare, paperwork that the wardens will need on election day. We have to test all the equipment. We have to line up election staff, which, depending on the type of election, could be anywhere between 20 to 100 people that are needed. And it doesn't stop after the polls close. We have a lot of post-election work that has to be done, and we're mandated by statutory deadlines to get that work completed.
Wow, that's a lot of people to pull in. I know I've been fortunate enough to help at a couple elections, a June and a November, so definitely a difference in the amount of people that seem to come through in June versus November. I think that's probably typical everywhere, though.
Right.
And yeah, I guess I didn't realize how many people that were involved. I mean, I've only seen it in City Hall, and well, I think Sue, we had gone over to the senior center too at one point to close the polls down there when I helped. So, but yeah, to have bring in 100 people because there's multiple polling places plus processing absentee ballots. Right.
Especially during a general election, it requires quite a few people to do that. Sometimes we have to bring in additional staff into our office to help us in the office. So it's a lot.
It is a lot. And it's funny. So what is a typical workday? We ask that of everyone. And most people are like, well, there's really not much typical to my day because you don't know what's going to walk through the door. So Alison, do you find the same, I guess, do you have the same experience as the deputy clerk?
I do. Sue does a lot of behind the scenes work as well, whereas I am customer facing. So I'll start with my hours are 8 to 4:30. We're open to the public 8:30 to 4. A typical workday is often dictated by the time of year. We issue a lot of birth certificates for children going into school for the first time, marriage certificates, death certificates, Summertime, we issue a lot of garage sale permits. We license food trucks for festivals and events. The other thing we do is we oversee the business license process and issue business licenses. And business licenses don't typically expire a certain time of year. When the business applies for the license and they're approved, their expiration is typically 1 year from approval. So we do have over 26 business license types. We license approximately 245 businesses. And then finally, as Sue was saying, we oversee and administer elections, from administering voter registration, validating petitions, to overseeing the whole election process.
Yeah, which the election process, we have an election coming up in November, as we do every year. And Sue, you are the registrar of voters. What does that mean exactly?
The registrar is the appointed official that determines voter eligibility. We process voter registrations. We make changes if a voter's address or name has changed, or if they want to either change their party enrollment. We maintain the voter list for the city. The registrar also has the authority to appoint deputy registrars. So especially in a municipality this size, Alison is a deputy registrar. Denise Spooner, who's an assistant clerk, she's a deputy registrar. And on election day, we have deputy registrars appointed at each of the polling places so people can register at the polls on election day.
So election day is November 7th. And if people are already registered to vote, that's great. They just need to go to their appropriate polling site. If you're not registered to vote yet, what do you need to do?
So if you're not registered to vote, the first time that you'll register is you'll go to the municipality where you're a resident of. You're going to want to provide them with proof of residency, which could be state ID, a driver's license. It could be your passport, social security number, the last 4 digits of your social security number. That would establish your identification. Then you're also required to establish residency. And that could be on your driver's license, state ID. You could also have, what's also acceptable is a utility bill that shows your physical address.
A hunting or fishing license that has your Auburn address on it.
If you're not able to establish identity or residency, we're not going to reject your voter registration application. We will accept it. However, when you vote in an election, until you establish your identity and residency, you'll vote a challenged ballot. And if you vote a challenged ballot, it will be counted in the same way as all other ballots on election night. The difference is if there's a recount at the election and there's enough challenged ballots to affect the outcome of the election, then the challenged ballots will be separated, and the basis for each challenge may be determined by the appropriate authority designated by state statute or by state or federal constitution.
I never even heard of that, but that's very interesting. I mean, I think, something that is unique about Maine, I know there are other states who have same-day registration as well, but we are one of the states in the U.S. where if for some reason your registration gets messed up, you can register to vote on the day of the election. That actually happened to me in 2020. I thought I had properly registered to vote, but I just recently moved, and so I guess maybe it hadn't gotten to the clerk's office in time or anything like that. But I got to the polling place and I was like, oh no, I'm not on the voter roll. I need to vote. It's something that feels very important, but thankfully, they were able to help me register there because I had my driver's license on me. But yeah, I think it's really important to be able to register to vote. But even if you can't do it beforehand or something happens, it's good to know that if you do have that identification, you can do it on the day. And if not, you talked about the challenge ballots. That's something where it's important to be able to vote. So I think it's
Absolutely.
great. Yeah.
Definitely. So What if I have lived, Abby, you kind of touched on this. You had lived somewhere else and you moved, so you had to like update your address. And you can do that before you head to the polls or when you check in, because you've got those deputy registrars at all the polling places, so they could verify and look at your CMP bill, for example, or a water bill or a tax bill or whatever it might be. If you happen to be able to pull that up, maybe on your phone. Can you pull stuff up on your phone? Would that work, Sue and Allison, if I showed you like access to my CMP bill on my phone?
Or, your insurance bill, we would accept that.
Okay.
If you're showing a document that has your name and your Auburn address, we would accept that.
So you kind of mentioned party affiliation earlier, and this was a question. My son is turning 18 in November. And so he was asking me some of these questions, and I was like, well, thank goodness I can actually, talk to people who know the answer, because I didn't know the answer. If you, I know you can declare a party affiliation, political party affiliation, when you register to vote. You don't have to. So what if you register as one party and then in the next election you decide, I want to change that? Can you change your party affiliation at any point in time, or like once you've said your one thing, that's it?
When you enroll in a political party, you must stay in that political party for 3 months before you can either withdraw or change party affiliation.
Really? Okay.
The 3 months, that's kind of a reasonable amount of time. It's good.
Well, yeah, because between June and November...
You could make some life-changing decisions, maybe.
Sure, maybe.
But also, I think it's reasonable that people, you don't want people to be able to switch every single day for I don't know, any reason. But that they're not beholden to one decision that they made at some time for the rest of their voting career.
Mm-hmm. Right. If you are unenrolled, then you can enroll in a qualified party at any time.
If you are enrolled in a political party and you want to change your party affiliation, say you're a Democrat and you want to enroll in the Republican Party, it takes 15 days to effectuate that change. So if it's a primary voting day and you go to the polls, you're enrolled as a Democrat, but you want to vote a Republican ballot that day, you will not be able to. Mm-hmm. You can change your party affiliation. However, that change hasn't gone into effect, so you would not be able to vote a Republican ballot.
Because of that 15-day period.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So in a primary election, if you wanted to change your party, you need to do that before if you want to vote for that new party.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. But as Allison said, if you go to the polls, you're unenrolled, you want to enroll in the Republican Party, that takes effect immediately, so you would be able to vote.
There's so many, I don't know how you ladies keep it all straight. You must still have a handbook or something.
Yes. And the laws are constantly changing, so it's really important that we try to stay on top of all of those changes. And
So I know the city of Auburn has multiple polling places, unlike my small town in Mechanic Falls, where you just go to the town office. Where would people find that information as far as where they should go to vote? Like, where's their polling place or the ward that they vote in? So
the best place, they could obviously call our office at 333-6601, extension 1121, or extension 1124. They could also go to our website and go to the city clerk's department. We have an elections and voting webpage where they'll find all of our ward maps, and they can determine, based on where they live, what ward they're in. We do have 3 polling locations. We have Ward 1 and 2. That's located at the Auburn Senior Community Center, 48 Pettingill Park Road. We have Ward 3 and 4, which is located right here at Auburn Hall, 60 Court Street. And we have Ward 5, which is located at the Boys and Girls Club, 48 2nd Street. You can go onto the State of Maine website. This is something I just recently discovered. And there is a Maine voter information lookup service. And the web address is https://www.maine.gov/portal/government/e-democracy/lookup.php. It's a great service. I was able to look up myself, my son.
So you just plug in any, like your address and it'll tell you where to go?
Yes. Yep.
That's great.
That's cool. I didn't know that either. So when you head to the polls and you're ready to vote, you must have to check in with someone. I guess, what does that process look like when you come through the doors, whether it's here at City Hall or at the Senior Center or the Boys and Girls Club? What does that look like when you get here and you walk in?
Okay, so when you get to the voting place, if you're already registered, you're going to go to the check-in table. You will provide your name and your address to the election clerk, and they will look for your name in the incoming voter list, is what we call it. They will check your name off the list, and you will be handed your ballot. From there, you will proceed to one of the voting booths where the voter will mark their ballot privately. Once that is complete, they will head over to the tabulating machine. They will insert their ballot or ballots. Sometimes we have multiple ballots. And once deposited, they'll have to exit the voting area. Oftentimes, as you're exiting the polling place, there may be petitioners there that are gathering signatures. Could be for a citizens initiative or a people's veto or some other local initiative.
Now, what if I have a disability where I struggle to read the ballot, or I have severe arthritis and it's difficult for me to fill out the ballot with the pen or marker? Can someone assist me with filling out my ballot? And could it be my child, for example? Can a polling worker help if I'm alone and I need help? Is that allowed?
Absolutely. Yes. Did you want to touch
Yes,
on that?
yes to both. And, there are a few other options that we have available. Each of our polling locations has what is called an express vote, which is a ballot marking device for individuals with disabilities. The voter can navigate through their ballot by using a touch screen, a keypad, and audio interface. Once they are finished with their choices, the machine generates a printed ballot, which can then be fed into the tabulating machine along with other ballots.
Oh, so each of the polling stations would have one of those machines?
Yes.
See, I didn't know that. I'm fortunate enough that I don't need to use one, so I didn't even realize that that's there as an option, but that's excellent.
Yeah,
Great
I think
to
that's
know.
really cool. The more people who vote, the better. So to have those things available is really important.
Now, what if I can't get to the polls on November 7th? How do I request an absentee ballot? And do I have to provide a reason that I need an absentee ballot? How does that process work?
In Maine, you don't need a reason to request an absentee ballot. There are multiple ways that you can request one. The State of Maine website, and I don't have the web address, but you can request an absentee ballot electronically by going to the State of Maine's website. We have the link on our website. You can call. Somebody can call us and request an absentee ballot. There's information that we are going to be looking for. And when you're requesting it by phone, we have to speak to the individual voter. We can't speak to a spouse who wants to request one for their spouse. We have to speak to the voter. People can submit an application and mail it into us. They can come in and vote absentee in person in the presence of the clerk. Absentee ballots are available 30 days before the election. And the statewide deadline to request an absentee ballot is the Thursday before the election. We offer extended hours on that Thursday. We're always open until 7 o'clock p.m. the Thursday before the election to allow people to come in, vote absentee, or register to vote.
Speaking of hours, that's one thing I don't think I included on my list of questions here, but what are our polling place hours?
We open the polls at 7 a.m. and we close at 8 o'clock p.m.
Okay, because I know some communities in Maine, I know open at 7 and some open at 8. And is that, did I see that right on the state site that kind of depends on your population? Is that how that works?
It does depend on population. Smaller municipalities can open 10 o'clock or later. Larger municipalities can open anywhere between 6 and 10.
Well, yeah, I'm sure you want to give, the more people you want to give people that opportunity.
Sure. And if they have, some people work really early, some people work late. So you go in to vote at 7 a.m. and then you go to work later, or you can't vote until 7 p.m. So,
Right.
Yeah, especially in a bigger city like Auburn, definitely important to have that range of time available for all the different types of people who are going to come through.
Right.
Yes, because it's so important to vote. Everyone needs to vote. Please vote. I don't care how you vote, just vote. So I voted, whether it's absentee ballot or in person. Those ballots get fed through the tabulating machines, and that's how your vote is counted, is that the machine's counting your ballot, correct?
That's correct.
Now, do ballots get rejected by the machine for some reason? Is there, if that happens, what do we do with it? What do you do with that ballot?
So on election day, there could be a ballot that will not go through the machine, but the voter is there, they're inserting their ballot. The machine will read if they left the ballot blank. It will give them a message on the screen. So the voter has an opportunity to get the ballot back and mark the races that they've missed. If they have overvoted, the machine will also indicate that. So the voter has the opportunity to take the ballot back and get a new ballot.
So, well, that's good to know. So I guess if you change your mind for some reason and you mess up your ballot, you are able to get a new one.
If it's before it goes
right,
through.
before
Yes,
it goes through the machine.
Cast.
Okay.
Yes. If they spoil a ballot, they can get a new one.
Okay.
Yeah. But they can get up to 3. And at that point, if they spoil the third one, then that ballot must be cast. They won't be able to get another ballot.
So you have 3 chances.
You have 3 chances.
You should really. I hope.
Yeah, get it right, people. Come on.
You'd hope. I think most people coming in to vote have some sort of idea of where they're going to go once they get there. But it's good to know that there is, some room for if there's some sort of simple mistake that it can be within reason. It can be redone.
Right. And the same goes with an absentee ballot. We've had people request an absentee ballot, and then they'll call us. I marked the wrong candidate in error. Can I get a new ballot? So we'll send them a new one.
Because you can't just cross it out and initial it and pick a new one, right? Because the machine's we don't know what to do with that. Right. Okay. Now, all the ballots get processed through the machines, whether absentee or in person, feeding it in yourself. And where do those ballots end up? At the end of the night, the machines get emptied out. Kind of, I guess, what happens next with those?
So at the end of the evening, the election workers clean out the ballot boxes and they store all voted ballots in tamper-proof containers provided by the Secretary of State. Each tamper-proof container is then sealed using a numbered plastic seal and then locked using a best padlock provided by the Secretary of State as well.
Oh, wow.
We do have those metal boxes for our local ballots as well. And if we're running the ballots through the same machine that they're running the state ballots through, we have to make sure those are separated because you can't commingle the state and municipal ballots. They have to be separated and put in separate metal containers.
And now I know when I think helped close down the polls at the senior center the last time that I helped, there are always at least 3 people, I think, in the room at all times if any of the ballots are out of the, outside of the machine, I guess.
We always have a Democrat and a Republican present when we are doing that. We have a Democrat and a Republican present when we are doing the tally sheets, and also the whole process when we're emptying out the ballot boxes, packing them in the metal containers.
Right. No one's left alone with.
That's right.
To clean up at the end of the night all by themselves. So.
Well, and I don't mean to put you guys on the spot for this, but I am curious. We were talking a few days ago, Jen and I and Liz were talking about, I'm interested in politics and how elections run and stuff like that. So Jen was saying I should volunteer for the next election. So what would that look like for a City of Auburn employee that was interested in volunteering for the first time? Could you take me through what that would be like for me, for example?
Yeah, I guess it depends where the need is.
Sure.
And we frequently get staff to help us out with elections. It could be helping us out in the office, fielding phone calls, directing people. It could be helping to process absentee ballots. There may be occasions where we need somebody to fill in at the polling place. There are so many different positions that are available. It takes a small army to run an election for sure.
It really does. I helped out at the information window and the phone was ringing off the hook. A lot of times people, how late are the polls open? Where is my polling place? Am I, do you see me on am I registered to vote? All of those questions, and people registering to vote. I know, Allison, I think you, Denise, and there was another lady who was helping, and that's all the 3 of you were doing was processing those voter registrations, whether it was an update or a totally, new voter registration card. You ladies were busy doing that too. And it was chaotic. But a good chaos.
A chaos for the greater good. Right?
Yes, exactly.
And just to give you an idea, something as simple as going to empty our ballot box, it takes 2 people.
Sure.
You have to have 2 people. We can't just send one person down to do that. So there are so many checks and balances to ensure that we are running a clean, fair, secure election. And that's part of the reason why it requires so many people at the polling place. We do need to maintain a balance of Democrats and Republicans. So it's quite a process. And it's really eye-opening for people that have never worked an election before. I think most of the general public, they have no idea everything that goes on behind the scenes. I've had so many of my election workers come to me time and time again to say, wow, I had no idea what running an election entailed.
Yeah.
And it's been very eye-opening for them as well.
That's exactly what I said to Abby. I said, you should totally help out if you want to, because it's seeing the process in a whole different way. Because normally you walk in, you cast your ballot, you put it in the machine, you walk out. Done. You don't give it another thought. But like you said, all of the work leading up to that point, and then all of the work at the end of the night that happens. So I'm assuming those locked boxes, they all get sent back to the state, or what happens? I guess they're in those locked boxes, and do you have to hold on to them for a certain period of time and then they get destroyed?
Yes, we do have retention periods where we have to hold on to that, to all election materials. The locked boxes, we have to keep them in the locked boxes for 2 months. Wow. And then we're able to transfer them into other containers. We usually use corrugated boxes. And there are different requirements depending on the type of election. There are different retention periods. The incoming voter lists, where we check off the voters' names, we have to retain those for 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 5 years. Absentee envelopes and absentee materials, not the ballots, but the envelopes and applications, we have to retain those for 2 years. And the ballots, like I said, it depends on whether it's a referendum, whether it's a state election, a local election, or a candidate election.
Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming all of that in case there's any sort of a recall, whether it's at the local municipal level or even at a state or national level, depending on the type of election.
Yeah, typically if there's going to be a recount, we will know within, I believe it's 5 days after the election. But the materials, honestly, I'm not sure why the retention period is what it is, but
it is.
But we just have to make sure we follow the law.
Those are the rules.
Those are the rules.
Exactly. Sometimes those are the rules, and that's just the way that it is, right? So, what do you find is the most interesting part of your job? And Sue, I'll start with you.
Honestly, it's all pretty interesting. I can't really specify one thing, although I do have to say elections has always stood out for me because there's so much to it. And it's an amazing process. It really is.
How about you, Alison?
And I echo that, Sue. Elections, the citizen initiative process, all of it. It's issuing marriage licenses to the different couples. I mean, that in and of itself is so rewarding.
I imagine that's a pretty fun part of your job.
It is. And, just meeting with the residents, the constituents, from day to day.
Mm-hmm.
And just to add to that, these are major events of people's lives, right? Mm-hmm. The birth of their children, marriages, the death of their loved ones. It's pretty special.
Well, yeah, and I think it's special that they get to have interactions with people like you two, because I do feel like it's like you said, they're huge moments in people's lives, whether it's happy or sad, and you want to know that you have someone that you're talking to in those situations that really do care about the people of Auburn. And I know both of you definitely do, but and have the sort of, I guess, the sort of grace that is required for those sorts of situations.
Yeah,
I know. I think I've stumbled upon a wedding ceremony or two downstairs on the first floor of City Hall. Yes,
that I may have performed.
Yes, that Alison was performing. I was like, oh, what's happening here? Oh, someone's getting married. Which is, that's fun.
It is fun. I love that.
It is.
And that's definitely the exception, not the norm, because it's not something that we typically provide through our office. It's been the exception and not the norm, even though I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
So what is your favorite thing about Auburn? And it doesn't have to be work related, just favorite thing about the city in general.
For me, Auburn's home. This is where I was raised. I graduated from Edward Little High School. It's a great community. I feel really fortunate to work for the city. We have a great team, great leadership with Phil at the helm. Mm-hmm. Auburn is home.
How about you, Alison?
Auburn is my work home. The people I work with are fantastic. I've actually worked in a couple of departments, and the city is just fantastic as a whole.
Excellent. Now, Alison, you said you've worked in a few different departments here. How long have you been here with the city?
So a little over 11 years. I started out with Sue, and I was with her for a couple of years, and then I went over to community development, and I helped to administer the residential rehab program. After a couple of years, I came back to work for Sue, and no regrets. I'm very happy with that.
And now, Sue, have you been the clerk the whole time you've been here with the city? And how long have you been here?
Yeah. So I've been here a little over 16 years. When I started initially, I was an information assistant in the clerk's office. But at that time, I was getting pulled into different departments that were short-staffed. So I worked in the finance department, the tax department, community development department. I even worked at the recreation department for a couple of weeks. So at that time, I felt like I was a jack of all trades. Master
absolutely.
of none. In 2010, I was appointed as the deputy clerk. In 2011, the clerk at the time resigned, and I was asked to step in as the acting clerk, and which I was terrified, but I did. And then in 2012, I was appointed as the city clerk. So I've been at this for about 11 years.
Wow. Okay.
That's really cool. I love hearing people's stories of how they've, spent their time at the city so far. So it's been really great.
And sometimes you just kind of fall into the things that you do, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's kind of what it sounds like. You were doing all sorts of different things. And now here you are, the city clerk, and have been since
2011, 2012. Yes.
Wow. So see, when you started that first day, I bet you never thought that was going to happen.
Absolutely not. Actually, even when they asked me if I would be the acting city clerk, I had no idea that I would ever go down this road. But it's been very, very rewarding.
And here we are. See,
Abby, we don't know what our future holds here because we're both fairly new compared to the two of you. So who knows? What else could we be doing in another...
City manager? Just kidding. We love Phil. We love Brian.
Yes.
We want them to stay in those positions.
I like it.
I kid.
Put them on notice. There you go, Abby. I like it. Hey, we all have to have dreams, right? And goals. Well, thank you so much, Sue and Allison, for joining us today and kind of giving us a glimpse into the city clerk's office and elections and voting. Elections are coming up. Don't forget to vote November 7th. Request your absentee ballot when the time comes, 30 days prior to.
They can actually request them now. But the ballots aren't in yet. Once the ballots come in, then we'll mail them out.
Oh, then you would mail them out. Okay. Well, that's good to know. See, I didn't ask that earlier. But thanks again for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks for joining us on Absolutely Auburn. You can find all things Auburn, Maine at auburnmaine.gov and goauburn.me. You can also listen to us anytime, anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio, just to name a few. The City of Auburn's communications team wants to remind you that Absolutely Auburn is the only official podcast for the City of Auburn, Maine.